what I think is probably the biggest kind of the macro concern that I have, and I don't have, you know, I try to always, if I bring you a problem, bring you a solution. And, you know, there are a couple of obvious solutions to this one, you know, impeach Trump, you know, win big in the elections, things like that. They're going to take some time. But the easy answers, I'm not sure I have one for this. And here's the thing, it's that the world's first, the modern world's first major confrontation with authoritarianism as a form of government, which had lasted for 2,000 years, you know, since the collapse of the Roman Republic, 3,000 years since the collapse of the Greek democracy. The first major modern confrontation between authoritarianism and democracy was the American Revolution. 80 years later, we had a group of fascists in the South who took over the South, a group of plantation owners who ended democracy in the South. By the mid-1840s, certainly by the mid-1850s, there was nothing even resembling democracy in the South. I mean, there were still elections, but they were fake. The news media was completely under control. You had a complete neo-fascist regime. It was called the Confederacy. And then 80 years after that, we challenged, so number one, 1776, we challenged the fascists, essentially, of King George III. In 1861, we challenged the fascists in the South, 80 years later. 80 years after that, in 1940, we challenged the fascists of Europe, Germany, Italy, Spain, and of course Japan. And here we are this year, 80 years from the end of World War II. And once again, it looks like the world is preparing for a battle between fascism and democracy. Only this time, we've got this new axis. You know, the old axis was, you know, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Japan. The new axis is, you know, more countries, probably fewer people. Well, actually, not fewer people, because India and China account for, you know, over a third of the entire planet's population, or in the neighborhood of a third. So, you know, this new axis that we are looking at is organizing itself right now in China. I mean, you know, there's this meeting that is going on. I believe it's pretty much wrapped up now. But, you know, Putin was there, and Xi and Modi and pretty much, you know, the whole gang. All the right-wing fascists, all the neo-fascist countries. And Xi made this comment that was essentially code for "we will take Taiwan." He was talking about the territorial integrity of China, which is his phrase for, you know, we want Taiwan back. And Putin, of course, is trying to take Ukraine. And now Trump blows up this boat off the coast of Venezuela, and I'll get to that in more detail in just a minute. But it sure looks to me like what we're looking at is kind of an end-stage war, possibly World War III level war, between democracy, or what's left of democracy, principally in the European countries and, you know, the fragments of it that are left here in the United States, on the one hand, and neo-fascism, you know, whatever you want to call it. You can call it communism in China, you can call it, you know, right-wing fascism in Europe, but whatever you want to call it, and fascism. Only this time, I mean, you know, the first time the world confronted fascism, we had George Washington as president, and he said, you know, I'm going to step down after 2 terms. I don't think we should ever have a king. The second time, we had Abraham Lincoln, who said, you know, we have a nation, we have to have a nation for all the people. The third time, we had Franklin Roosevelt, who you know, brought us back from the depths of the Republican Great Depression and took on the fascists in Europe. But this time, we actually have a fascist in the White House, which is causing many of us to say, wait a minute, we're the bulwark against fascism, and we put a fascist in the White House, and he's surrounded himself with fascist advisors? How does this work out? And that's the problem. I mean, this is the problem. In 1937, Franklin Roosevelt gave a speech called the Quarantine Speech, in which he talked about how basically, you know, Hitler and friends were just, and Japan relative to China, were doing what fascists do. I mean, they were seizing territory. And he said, you know, we can't allow this. At the same time, there was this incredible pressure in 1937 here in the United States. It was called the America First movement, not to stop Hitler, not to intervene. And because of the America First movement, Hitler took an awful lot more of Europe and killed a lot more people than he would have had we not had Charles Lindbergh and the America First movement in the United States at that time. So here we are. I mean, I don't think that Trump is going to stop World War III. I think that if Putin declares all-out war on Ukraine and if Xi takes Taiwan, that's the kind of thing that could trigger World War III. Will Trump defend democracy? I just don't know how this plays out. I really don't. And I don't think anybody does. But it is tremendously concerning. And I think we do need to be talking about this, talking about the impact. What is the impact on democracy all around the world? I know that, you know, Ursula von der Leyen and these other, you know, the European officials, they are having these conversations right now. What are we going to do with this? I don't have an easy answer other than to wake as many people up as possible. I solicit your opinions.